Imagine this. One man, armed not with guns or armies, but with spreadsheets and signatures, quietly brings the most powerful nation on earth to its knees. No one voted for him. Few even know his name. And yet, for a brief, terrifying moment, he held America's economy hostage. The ghost in the system. He didn't start as a villain. He was a quiet genius, an analyst obsessed with loopholes, a lawyer fluent in numbers, a bureaucrat who could turn a regulation into a weapon. He believed the system itself was broken, that America had built its empire on borrowed time and borrowed money. And so, he decided to prove it. In Washington, people called him the Fixer. He knew every weak joint in the government's machinery, every outdated law, every contradictory clause, every unwritten rule that could bend under pressure. And when the time came, he bent them all. 2. The perfect crisis. The setup was simple. America's national debt was spiraling out of control. Congress argued. Markets panicked. And somewhere deep inside the Treasury Department's legal maze, this man found his opening. A procedural glitch in the nation's debt system that no one had ever used before. He filed a single document. Just one. A 26-page legal petition that froze billions of dollars in Treasury transactions. Within hours, federal payments stalled. The government's cash flow dried up, and the world's largest economy began to choke. 3. Panic on Wall Street. At first, no one understood what was happening. Stocks crashed, bond yields exploded, TV anchors threw around words like unprecedented and meltdown. Behind closed doors, the president's advisors whispered the same question. Who did this? They thought it was China, or a cyber attack. But the truth was much smaller, and much scarier. It was a single man in a rented DC office, watching chaos unfold on a flickering laptop. Fifi, the power of one signature. The loophole he used dated back to the 1970s, when Congress passed a poorly written Financial Reform Act. It allowed any registered citizen to file a procedural challenge against Treasury bond issuance, intended for public oversight. But nobody had ever used it, because nobody had ever been bold enough to risk the world economy on a technicality. He was. His filing suspended America's ability to roll over its national debt. In 48 hours, the Treasury's daily operations ground to a halt. Welfare checks, military salaries, federal contracts, all frozen, and as markets collapsed, he watched in silence, not out of greed, but out of grim satisfaction. He wanted the system to feel its own fragility. The domino effect. Foreign investors panicked. Japan and China dumped U.S. bonds. Credit rating agencies downgraded America's debt for the first time in history. Interest rates shot up overnight, triggering a cascade of bankruptcies. Airlines canceled flights. Banks restricted withdrawals. Social media exploded with rumors. The government is bankrupt. In less than a week, $3 trillion evaporated from global markets, and still, no one knew the man behind it. 6. The revelation. Then came the leak. A journalist from The Atlantic received an anonymous tip, an email containing the document that had triggered the entire crisis. It was signed by a former Treasury legal consultant. His name appeared only once, in a single paragraph, buried near the end, Jonathan Reed. Within hours, Jonathan Reed became a national obsession. News anchors demanded his arrest. Lawmakers called him a terrorist, but Reed didn't run. He went on television and said just one sentence, "I didn't break America. I just showed you that it was already broken." 7. The trial of the century. Congress dragged him to hearings. Every camera in the country was pointed at him as senators accused him of sabotaging the economy. He sat calmly, never raising his voice. When asked why he did it, he replied, "You built a system where money isn't real, where debt is infinite, and accountability is optional. I just pulled one thread, and the illusion collapsed." Some saw him as a villain. Others saw him as a whistleblower, someone who exposed the government's addiction to borrowing. Outside the Capitol, protesters carried signs that read, "Reed was right." 8. The aftermath. In the months that followed, the markets slowly recovered. The loophole was closed. The debt ceiling was raised. And Reed was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for economic sabotage. But inside those walls, something strange happened. Letters poured in, from economists, professors, even ex-bankers, calling him the man who forced America to face reality. Books were written, documentaries produced, and slowly, Reed's story turned from scandal to legend.